British automotive marques are extension of the nation's class system and style. Whether conjuring the leather armchairs and wood paneling of a gentleman's club or the naked mechanicals of a locomotive, they echo the singular, manic ambitions of the engineers who realized their dreams, however remote or eccentric these may have been. Rare is the British car built with the mass market in mind, and that tendency has had lasting effects. Vehicles produced in high volumes in today's UK all carry the names of foreign automakers. But that singularity has left the world a trove of emphatically British cars that demand reverence. Here, then, alphabetically arranged, are 10 British cars well worth celebrating. Let's watch check them. If we still leave some of them in shadow, give us a comment. If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe our channel for upcoming videos. The first in list 10 quintessentially British cars is Aston Martin DB5, 1965. The Aston Martin DB5 is the definitive Gran Turismo, brawny yet sophisticated, sensuous yet square-jawed. James Bond drove one equipped with revolving number plates and an ejector seat. Civilian versions used a hand-built inline 6-cylinder engine with 280 horsepower, matched to a manual gearbox and wrapped in an elegant, lightweight aluminium body. Some 47 years after its auspicious debut, the Aston Martin DB5 made a cameo appearance in last year's Bond installment, Skyfall, ascending to hero status all over again. But, forget about Bond, forget about Peter Sellers, forget about that ejector seat. The Aston Martin DB5 deserves cult status in its own right. The driving position of an Aston Martin DB5 has a delightful vintage feel to it, with lots of big, round instruments set within a painted metal dashboard. Sniff the leather, reach out for the controls. And bear in mind that this was intended as a sporting carriage for a gentleman. It's more golf club and horse and hounds than racetrack, despite the formidable Aston Martin competition heritage. You'll recognize instantly that this is a car that could only have been built in Britain. Once you've got this Grand Tour out on the open road, you'll revel in the torque that big and slightly gruff straight-six engine develops to make every gear change a thrill in itself. There's a distinctive heaviness about a 1960s Aston Martin, and that helps to give the cars a satisfying feeling of quality and solidity. You'll certainly notice the weight under cornering, and, if you're pushing on, you might also notice that over-enthusiastic cornering will make the tail run a little wide. Steady. It's still somebody else's car, for the moment, anyway. The second in list 10 quintessentially British cars is Austin Healey 3000 Mk3, 1965. Introduced in late 1963 and built through December 1967, the 3000 Mark III, Series BJ8, was the final version of the beloved Big Healey and represents the highest refinement of the marque. This Healey typifies the genre of affordable British post-World War II sports cars. Exported to the US in droves, these cars helped rescue the island's motor manufacturers. It is the first car sold for Mattel's Barbie doll was, in fact, a pink Healey. The 3000, designed by the famed racer and engineer Donald Healey and assembled by the giant British Motor Corporation, debuted to acclaim in 1959. By the time the more powerful Mk3 version bowed in 1963, the Roadster was fully developed and had authored a successful history in motorsport, and even a few production car speed records. With twin 2-inch SU carburetors, the well-developed 2,912 cubic centimeter 6-cylinder engine of the 3000 Mark III produced 150 horsepower, the most of any model of the Austin Healey line. Acceleration from 0 to 60 mph took just 9.8 seconds, and top speed was around 120 mph. Other improvements of the 3000 Mark III included a revised exhaust system, a vacuum brake booster as standard, and, after the initial 1,390 examples, a revised rear suspension to increase ride height for improved ground clearance. The model name 3000 Mark III and the series designation BJ8 are synonymous, and it is only this model of the entire range of Austin Healeys that featured a luxurious cockpit combining a dashboard of burled walnut and a center console, as well as the curved windscreen with wing windows and the roll-up side windows introduced shortly before on the Series BJ7 model. It is clearly the most comfortable, most weather-tight, and most luxurious model among all Austin Healey's. Comfortable and fast yet classically styled, the 3000 Mark III marked the epitome of the open British sports car and is widely considered an iconic example of the best of the era. The third position in List 10 quintessentially British cars is Bentley Continental GT Speed, 2013. Fond of brutish, authoritative automotive statements, Walter Owen Bentley, the founder of the marque bearing his name, would likely have approved of the Bentley Continental GT Speed 2013. 2013 Bentley Continental GT Speed is Bentley's fastest model ever with 616 horsepower. Under its hood lurks, the Continental GT Speed gets an upgraded 6.0L, 48-valve, 4-cam, twin-turbocharged W12 engine. The W12 engine generates 616 horsepower and 590 pounds-ft of torque. Bentley has stated that the Continental GT Speed will reach 0 to 60 mph in only 4 seconds and has a top speed of 205 mph, almost 320 km per hour. All that power from the W12 engine is put to the ground via a ZF8-speed automatic transmission and a permanent all-wheel drive system. Even with over 600 horsepower under the hood, the Continental GT Speed is 12% more fuel efficient. The GT Speed is equally in its element, charging along at triple-digit speeds or wafting through Beverly Hills. To get to such a high speed, the Continental GT Speed permanently directs power to all four wheels through a close-ratio ZF8-speed automatic transmission, and benefits from lowered uprated suspension for better handling. With all mentioned information, Bentley Continental GT Speed, 2013, is deserved for the third position in List 10 quintessentially British cars. The fourth position in List 10 quintessentially British cars is BMC Mini, 1959. The car, now regarded as the first Mini, first post-prototype, pre-production Minis, are assembled at BMC's Austin plant, at Longbridge, Birmingham. An Old English white Morris Mini Minor, registered 621 AOK, is assembled a month later, at the Morris plant at Cowley, Oxford. Launched on August 26, 1959, the new front-wheel drive car was priced at around $800 and marketed under two names, Austin 7 and Morris Mini Minor. The two vehicles were the same except for each had a different radiator grille, and by 1962, both were known simply as the Mini. Isogonous design, including an engine mounted sideways to take up less space, had created a surprising amount of space for a small-bodied car. At only 10 feet long, the Mini could sit four adults, and had a trunk big enough for a reasonable amount of luggage. With a starting price of around $800, the Mini was truly a people's car, but its popularity transcended class, and it was also used by affluent Londoners, as a second car to easily maneuver in city traffic. By the time production was halted in 2000, 5.3 million Minis had been produced. Around that same time, a panel of 130 international journalists voted the Mini European Car of the Century. A high-performance version of the Mini engineered by the race car builder John Cooper had first been released in 1961. Known as the Mini Cooper, it became one of the favorites of many enthusiasts worldwide. In 2003, the Mini Cooper was updated for a new generation of buyers by the German automaker BMW. The fifth position in List 10 quintessentially British cars is Jaguar E-Type, 1960s. The greatest motor car of all time. The most iconic classic car ever. Sensational. Unique, ahead of its time. Every description is fair. The Jaguar E-Type is still not a decade since its launch at 4:30 p.m. at the Parc des Vibes in Geneva. On March 15, 1961, the Jaguar E-Type, or the Jaguar XKE for the North American market, is a British sports car that was manufactured by Jaguar Cars between 1961 and 1975. Its combination of beauty, high performance, and competitive pricing established the model as an icon of the motoring world. The car had the triple carburetor 3.8-liter XK engine, first seen in the XK150S, producing 265 bhp, and a lighter aerodynamic body gave virtual 150 mph performance, about 241 km per hour. With acceleration of 0 to 60 mph in 6.9 seconds, the E-Type stunned the world with its futuristic and curvaceous styling, its advanced mechanical specifications and real-world price of £2,256. To say that the automotive press was shocked at the first sighting of the E-Type Jaguar is an understatement. The Malcolm Sayer design was simply unlike any motor car ever seen. Achingly beautiful but clearly also absolutely functional. The design, engineering and creation of the E-Type was one of the greatest steps forward for the automotive industry in the decade. The 1960s was a time of revolution, liberation and innovation, with the E-Type right there leading the changes. It's become a mobile cliché of the swinging 60s. The independent rear suspension was a genuine innovation that gave the E-Type a comfortable ride and superb road holding. And that was a key reason why E-Types could be raced, and win, straight out of the box, as drivers such as Graham Hill, Roy Salvadori and many more immediately proved. Enzo Ferrari deemed it the most beautiful car ever made, is undeniable, and on the road, its sporting charms have not diminished over time. Beneath the exceptionally aerodynamic skin, the Jaguar has a fine straight-six engine, modern disc brakes and a refined independent suspension that was derived from racing successes of the legendary D-Type. With looks, pace, power, engineering and heritage, the Jaguar also offered an extra quality relative affordability. While Aston Martin, Ferrari, Porsche et al. Had worthy rivals, they were much more costly. That price differential has remained. A superb E-Type can now be valuable, but an equivalent DB4 or 250 GT will cost rather more. The sixth position in List 10 quintessentially British cars is Land Rover Defender 90. Behold, the Land Rover Defender was Britain's maximalist response to the pickup truck, modifying the agricultural, post-World War II models for true drivability by introducing a more civilized coil spring suspension, and a range of new engines created the ultimate off-roader. The Defender, while still a workhorse for farmers, the military and utility companies, has become a fashion accessory for civilians, as well. It is as comfortable, and nearly as common, on the streets of London as it is on a pheasant shoot in the country. As the venerable Jeep did in America, the Land Rover Defender helped define the class of automobile that would become the sport utility vehicle in coming years. The Land Rover Defender was the perennial workhorse of the British firm's range. While other models have come and gone, the Defender plugged away, fulfilling a need as a commercial vehicle, farm tool and all-round off-road workhorse that was all but unstoppable when the going got tough. With over 60 years in production, it still remained on Land Rover's order books for good reason, because it was unbelievably capable off-road. No modern car has been capable of emulating its off-road prowess, although if you've driven one, you'll know about the huge sacrifices you have to make if you want to drive a Defender daily. It's massively outclassed by modern SUVs, and all of the 4x4 ability in the world can't mask the fact the Defender is incredibly uncomfortable on tarmac, as well as very noisy. The on-road ride is bouncy, thanks to the off-road bias suspension, and the Defender's 2.2-liter diesel is old and noisy too. The engine is from the Ford Transit, and while the last version was the smoothest and most powerful engine seen in the Defender, it was hardly on a par with more modern rivals. The Land Rover Defender was sold in a wide range of styles. The most popular, and most SUV-like, were the 90 and 110 models. Frankly, this is going to be a car that you either love or hate. The verdict, then, depends which side of the fence you're on, but there's no doubting it has a very unique appeal. Make sure you can live with the driving experience, but we'll probably never see the like again, and that makes it a pretty special thing. The seventh position in List 10 quintessentially British cars is Caterham 7. The 7 is the embodiment of Lotus founder Colin Chapman's oft-repeated mantra, simplify, then add lightness. Debuting in 1957 with a 1172cc inline four-cylinder engine from Ford, the 7 produced between 28 horsepower and 40 horsepower, depending on its state of tune, which may seem meager until the 7's feathery, 1,100 pounds curb weight is considered. The car was quick, and over the years, it grew notably quicker. The ultimate testament to the 7's appeal is its longevity. After Lotus discontinued it in 1972, Chapman sold production rights to a former dealer, Graham Nern, whose Caterham Cars has continued to build the 7, in turnkey and kit form. To this day, the Caterham 7 is almost the default choice for drivers looking for track day thrills or a back road blast on a Sunday morning. The appeal is in the 7's simplicity, lightweight and communicative chassis. That, and wonderfully rapid acceleration. Archetypal old stager based on a design by Lotus founder Colin Chapman 50-odd years ago, the 7 is a two-seat tub with wheels. Stripped and Spartan, it remains a seminal driving experience for those interested in driving rather than simply traveling. Equipped with modern engines and brakes, plus a core weight of, usually, around 550 kilograms, the 7 can scare even the most outrageously powerful supercars, helped in part by modest dimensions and steering that connects direct to your brain. The core range is familiar, but there are 2 new bookend additions. A sweet Suzuki 660cc's turbo-engined 7-160 with ability to reach 60 mph in 6.5 seconds, and the 620R, which pumps out 310 bhp from a 2.0-liter Dwartec in a 500 kg car. That's 620 bhp per ton, fact fans, and 0-60 mph in 2.8 seconds. It's quick, uncomfortable, cramped and noisy, with a devastatingly crappy fabric hood arrangement that's harder to put up than a broken tent. It of course remains an absolute TG favorite. The 8th position in List 10 Quintessentially British Cars is McLaren P1. The McLaren P1 is proof that singular, eccentric visions are alive and well in the UK car industry. The ultimate supercar from a small, hyper-obsessive manufacturer, the P1 is a race-bred rocket with a gasoline-electric hybrid powertrain. Its 727 horsepower, 3.8-liter twin-turbo V8 meets a 176 horsepower electric motor. The system's 903 horsepower total output spins the rear wheels through a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. With production limited to 375 cars, priced at a cool £866,000 roughly $1.3 million a piece, the P1 promises to achieve the mythic status of its vaunted predecessor, the 1992-98 McLaren F1. The P1 is a completely different beast to its iconic predecessor, the F1, but where the F1 shunned technology in pursuit of driving purity, the P1 uses it to its advantage. Hybrid power, turbocharging, active suspension and adjustable aerodynamics make it dramatic on the road and race car fast on a circuit. Ultimately, the F1's genius means it can never be truly eclipsed, but the P1 is a bold, remarkable product in an era of equally brilliant vehicles. Not necessarily the fastest, the loudest, the most technically dazzling, the lightest or the most powerful. Just the best, the most rewarding to drive on the road and, probably more frequently, on a circuit. The 9th position in List 10 Quintessentially British Cars is Morgan 3-wheeler, 2011. The Morgan Motor Car Company has been in the same family's ownership since 1909, when Harry Morgan promoted his 3-wheeled cycle car. And it is in that spirit that the founder's grandson, Charles Morgan, delivers the company's newest model, an open-air, seat-of-the-pants anachronism that blows wind up the skirts of bloated exotics. The 1,200-pound 3-wheeler makes use of an 80-horsepower, 2-liter V-twin motorcycle engine. The sprint from 0 to 60 mph happens in about 4.5 seconds, and the trike will hustle all the way to 115 mph before the laws of terminal velocity intrude. The Morgan 3-wheeler is designed to bring the fun and passion back to personal transport. The iconic design of the Morgan 3-wheeler has been updated with 21st-century technology. The powertrain is a 1983cc V-twin dual-injected engine mated to a Mazda 5-speed gearbox. This provides smooth, get-in-and-drive convenience with a thrill of extreme performance. The Morgan 3-wheeler is designed for one purpose alone, to make driving fun. A leather-padded cockpit complete with aircraft instrumentation adds to the sense of flying on the road. The car seems to respond as much to thought as physical input. The S&S engine powering the Morgan 3-wheeler has plenty of torque, and provides maximum power at minimum revs. At 2.0 liters, the engine is powerful, and when coupled with a lightweight body, means the 21st century Morgan three-wheeler provides unrivaled power to wait for its on-the-road price. The time is right for Morgan to take a new look at the combination of acceleration, performance and economy. The time is right to drive a Morgan three-wheeler. The last position in List 10 quintessentially British cars is Rolls-Royce Phantom 6 Limousine. You cannot get more quintessentially British than the Phantom 6, which debuted in 1968 and remained in the Rolls-Royce catalogue until 1990. Then as now, Rolls-Royce pursued nothing less than a rarefied automotive ideal. The Phantom 6, silent, smooth, luxurious and exclusive, was all of that and more. The company produced only 374 of these grand giants, most of them clad in handcrafted bodies from the London coach builder Mulliner Parkward. Early examples employ a 6.2-litre V8. Later models carried a 6.75-litre V8 producing upward of 250 horsepower, but calculating horsepower was the buyer's homework. Disclosing exact engine output was beneath Rolls-Royce in those days. In 1959, Rolls-Royce produced one of the largest cars ever to emerge from its Crewe factory, and used the occasion to launch its now familiar 6.3-litre V8 engine. It was a suitably enormous car built for heads of state and the super-rich, tipping the scales at almost 3,000 kilograms. The Phantom V had a 3.6 m wheelbase and the passenger space was suitably enormous, especially in the rear. Under the bonnet, the new pushrod V8 owed much to the engines built by Chrysler and GM in America, even down to the aluminium block and cylinder heads, which was fashionable in the USA at the time. Power steering was standard, it needed to be, as was automatic transmission, while underneath the imposing bodywork was a lengthened version of the Silver Clouds chassis. Coachwork options were offered, although most buyers went for the H.J. Mulliner 6 Light styling, usually painted black. Performance was adequate for what was expected of the car, but fuel consumption was astronomical if the car was pushed. In 1968, it was replaced by the even more extravagant but visually similar 6.7-litre Phantom 6, and that car remained available well into the 1990s.